Hi everyone, welcome back. We rebranded into Fabric Developer now, so welcome back to Fabric Developers. And today we'll talk about something not related to Fabric actually, because we're launching our Fabric Developer website. And I thought what a great opportunity to actually talk about the backend infrastructure, because it's a very interesting one for me that I've got lots of questions for you, MJ. I think before we actually jump into it, maybe I'll just show from a content creation point of view what it looks like, and then I'll hand it over to you to talk about the infrastructure. But before we get there, do you want to just talk a little bit about the stack that you've
Yeah,
chosen for us?
yeah, absolutely, right? Like I think well first off, right, like it's 2024 now, right? It's not 2012, right? And like you might be asking what sort of like engine do you want to use for creating a website, right? Like if it was 10 years ago, the answer is WordPress, right? Obviously, right? But obviously the technology has evolved since then, and there are like a lot of benefits of choosing the other approaches. Like in this case, we're going with a static web app approach. We're using um, Astro, Svelte, JavaScript in particular, and then we're using GitHub Actions as well. And then now we also use Azure App Service domains to buy the domain. So like if you're in the technical space and if you're within the Azure or Microsoft space, like you might be considering this approach as well in general, right? Like in so many reasons, right? And it's technically free besides the domain itself, and that's really the major advantage why I chose this stack. And the authoring experience, it's you'll talk more about that as well. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yeah, definitely. Oh, let me share my screen. I think it's probably good time for our users to see the new website. Um, Let me know when you're able to see it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm seeing the website. That's really awesome. Modern.
You should
Um,
sh-
yeah,
should have drum rolls before
yeah,
before this demo, right? It's like,
yeah.
ta-da!
Probably the highlight here is the domain, right? Like getting fabricdeveloper.com, right? Like that's a highlight of its own.
Yeah, I found. Yeah, yeah. I've seen. I've been to fabricdevelopers.com as well. So if you end up here, just remove the S, because yeah, as you can tell, they're for very different
Yeah, different.
target audience, right? So so yeah, Fabric developer, and so just quickly, so we've launched a lot of videos in our Fabric developer YouTube channel. We've been kind of broadcasting them on LinkedIn mostly, and we've got a lot of followers in a relatively short period of time as well. So thank you all very much for being interested in what we're talking about. And what I want to kind of just share a little bit is over the past few days, my experience. So MJ has set up I guess, the infrastructure and everything. So that allows me to just go in and change the logo, create some post. And that experience has been very simple, right? It was really easy to pick up. So all that I need to do is there's a content management system called Tina sitting in the backend. So I can actually just jump onto my local host, go into Tina and start typing. But I found the other approach to be actually easier is if I just go into my VS Code. So this is the repo, by the way. Jump back a little bit. So this is the actual repo, and it contains the entire website, including all the blog posts. So whenever I need to change something, I need to add a new blog post, I just simply come into content, a source content and post. I can start to create a new folder for the post. And in every folder so far, there's only two items. One is the actual content, and the other one is the cover page. And to be honest, I've been cheating a little bit just to create some initial contents. So I've been using Google Gemini to go through the YouTube videos that we've published, and then done a bit of copy and paste, some light editing, just to populate some of the blog posts as well. So not the best quality, however, it allows me to actually create some blog posts, reasonable blog posts in a very short period of time. So that's a big plus. So as you can see, this is the back end I'm showing for the blog post. So here I just need to say, hey, look, this is the title, this is the published date. It's a markdown file. and it's pretty standard for all Markdown files. So it's very easy to work with. I don't need to worry about formatting. It's Markdown taking care of all of that as well. The standard way of inserting images, just iframe. I just need to set the width and height. And yeah, so one hash is heading, two hash is header two, etc., etc. So once I'm done with a post, I can actually save it into my and actually look at it. The moment I hit save, I can actually go to the local host and see the changes I've made as well. So that's been great. And once I'm happy with it, I can just yeah, push, like, commit my change and push it to the back to the repo and create a pull request from that. And I think that's one of the things that I was really interested about as well. So over the past few days, I've created a number of different pull requests into the repo.
There you go.
So as soon as I merge them, a GitHub action get created. So I'm just talking it from my experience point of view, where it's pretty much all positive. So you know, a GitHub action get created and on the main branch, and pretty much it will just push whatever changes I have into the actual website. So it takes a few minutes for me to actually just, you know, see the changes I've committed into the actual website, and you know, everything is version controlled, and you know, the experience has been very, very smooth, surprisingly. So yeah, that's why I have lots of questions for you, MJ, about how this thing was actually set up. You know, maybe if we can spend a bit more time on the GitHub action piece as
Yeah,
well, about how, like, this thing, you know, when I make a change in the repo, it converts into the actual website so easily and seamlessly.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, like again, this is probably not meant for those who are not technical at all, right? Like obviously, if you're not technical, you don't know GitHub, you don't want to use repos. Like this approach is probably not the best approach, right? Just go with a SaaS-based managed WordPress or something, right? But given that Dave and I are in, there's a level of technicality for us, and that this type of workflows like Git, and so on, domains, it's something we kind of like have to be familiar with anyway. So that's why we pick it up right straight away. Um, okay, now, all right, let me explain now how this really works, right? In an infrastructure point of view. Well, yeah, you mentioned it's open source. So it's under this repo Fabric Developer. And I think the most important thing you have to look at is the how the file structure is, right? And you would know straight away that this is a Node.js project, right? Because you have a package JSON. It's a JavaScript project, pretty much, right? And with that alone, there's so many ways of doing that. Like, you can use plain React, you can use Angular, you can use Gatsby and like all those different things, right? However, there are two kind of like technologies that's kind of like pulling me at the moment, which is Astro and Svelte. Um, the rationale here, without this being about Svelte and Astro, episode, is that Astro and Svelte, they're kind of like really trying their best again to simplify the whole, web development experience. And I like that, the simplicity, what a web app should be, and so on and so forth, right? That's really the choice why I went with Astro and Svelte. So Astro in particular is the one that's like making sure it's a static web app, right? It's the one that's generating this as a static web app, meaning just plain HTML, CSS, JavaScript, no backend, no nothing, right? Like literally you can just open this locally in your machine without an engine running. So that obviously there's also other approach like Hugo, Jekyll, and all those other, yeah, Gatsby is an example as well that does that, right? But I just like Astro because it works really well with Svelte, and Svelte is very again that simplicity approach. That's why you would see here that this is a an Astro project. Like if you look at pages, this it has the .astro, so on and so forth. But basically the file structure or like the UI itself is separate from the content itself. So that's what you were talking about earlier, David. Where in like all the content lives in the content folder. So because we don't post them in a database, right? Like that's why it's just locally in there. So all this HTML and those Astra pages will just literally fetch it from that content folder, and there you go. That's your website, right? Yeah. So that's really the high level structure of the website itself, right? And obviously we didn't do this. I didn't do this from scratch. I leverage an existing kind of like a theme, which is by Fuwari. So Fuwari kind of like created this kind of like base project for us, right? And I just kind of like extended it from that point of view, right? Now, all right,
Yep.
now let's talk about the GitHub Actions part, right? And like the actual infrastructure and how it's hosted and so on, right? Um, well, first off, there is GitHub. When you were mentioning about this PR aspect, right? So this whole PR kind of like triggers that GitHub action. So in the GitHub action itself, right, you have this. So I have a Azure Static Web App CI/CD in here. That basically, if we go into the details, let's go back to the code, GitHub workflows, and click on this YAML file. This is what defines what happens, right, in GitHub Actions. So basically, what happens here is that when there are like a pull request on the main branch, or is there a push on the main branch, right? So this is like the trigger point, right? And then this is what happens when this is triggered. Now in here, this is like static web apps kind of like approach, wherein the idea here is just kind of like have an output location of this. So when you do an npm run build, static this job here is already kind of like smart enough to do a build and deploy to static web app, right? So
Mm.
using this token, it will then deploy that into static web app. So where is that static web app? It's here. So this static web app here is basically where it's hosted. And if you look here, the SKU is free. Its location is global. And Azure Static Web App is basically like similar to GitHub Pages, Vercel, and so on, things like that. Um, but again, within Azure, right? And from there, now it's just very straightforward, right? Like you by the way, there's also an extended hosting plan. Although it's free, there are like limitations. The bandwidth is the limitation. Like it's 100 GB per subscription. Um, yeah, but again, this is like yeah, it's assuming that the app would be queried like gazillion times, right? For it to to extend that. Um, yeah, and then basically from there, you just have to apply the custom domain, right? And just add the because the custom domain is within Azure, so there's that option already to add the Azure DNS, and that's pretty much it, right? And then the Azure DNS point of view now is literally when you create an app service domain, it will create this app service domain itself and the DNS itself.
Mhm.
So that's why it just picks that up, straight away.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's it. That's where our free website is hosted.
Yeah, cool. So there's the what's the file extension YAM? Is that what's called?
Yeah, no, yeah.
YAML. So the YAML kind of dictates the trigger, and I can see in there the action there is called upload, and it also defines the credentials and the location where the destination needs to be,
Mhm.
which in this case, as you're saying, is the static Azure static web. Is
Yeah,
that what's it called?
yeah, exactly. Azure Static Web App. And one of the
Static web
beauty of
app.
this as
Yeah.
well, Dave, is that I forgot to mention that the whole generation of this GitHub workflow was automated by Static Web App itself. So when you're creating a static web app, right? Let's say let's just create a new one, right? Just for demo purposes.
Yep.
Let's say swa. Now let's put free. You see here, there's that deployment details. Frame. Hey,
Mm.
can you actually look at your repo? In this case, Fabric Developer, right? And then from there, which branch are you gonna point it on? In this case, the main branch. And then I go to advanced. Actually, not even advanced. This will kind of like select the framework. In this case, I think I chose SvelteKit, something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, and then that just kind of like pre-configures everything for you, right? Yeah, and that's really simple. Like the whole click experience is very simple. And now from here on, the focus is creating contents and sharing that content, right? Now that's the harder part. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I like it because yeah, from I haven't done this before, and just one of the reasons I haven't done that is just configuring the different pieces in the backend hasn't been straightforward. So I can actually find like a website kind of repo online, but then to actually go from there to into an actual website with a real domain, that seems to be a bit of a pain. So on the Azure side, you can actually purchase the domain now, at a relatively very competitive price, instead of going through like Big Daddy or some of the other domains. So that's done, and the beauty of that is once you've done that, you can actually see those domains in the drop down as well. So it's all kind of integrated. So yeah, and then GitHub, it's just a few clicks to point to the GitHub repo as well. And you're saying once you configure the workflow in GitHub, the execution and everything is actually done from the web as your static web app as well. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So man, everything's baked in Azure right now. I'm just telling you. And yeah, the cost is, like let's say this domain is just
Mm.
11.99, and the renewal as well every year, just 11.99 USD.
Yeah. Yeah. One,
So
one thing I don't like about like some of the other domain what do you call them? Wholesalers
domain
or like yeah, the
domain
price.
providers, right? Yeah, the price is just like like
Like if you
unreasonable
get
sometimes, right?
like if you get a if we've done a good job with Fabric developer domain, for example, and the traffic went up and the price will go up next year as well. So this might be a bit more yeah, from a cost control perspective, this will be a lot safer. So that's great
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and
Mm.
again, this is very. You'll be surprised that it's not super expensive. Again, the domain is the only one we're paying at the moment, right? GitHub Actions is free because it's open source, so that's one of the prerequisite as well. And that's why it's free. The hosting of the repo is free as well because again, it's open source. Which it should be, right? Like the website is out in the open.
Yeah,
Why are you
that's
not
true.
open sourcing the the repo as well, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and that's it. And again, this is meant to do a lot of this just reading, consuming, websites, right? Just UI websites. This workflow is probably not meant for, like that involves complex backend, complex things like orchestration here and there. Like this is just serving pages. Like, show me a page. Show me a page. Show me content. Yeah. So basically what happens is that each time you push a content, we're creating a new folder, and that new folder with all the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and images just gets packaged up again into static web app.
Yeah. And um if we just want to do blog posts, this is fantastic because we don't need to worry about any of the other things. It's just okay, content, 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 and focus on content. And so as a result, hopefully, as the user, they will be able to actually see more good quality contents coming from us as well. Um, yeah, so that's definitely another bonus. There are limitations, as you mentioned, with this approach, but I think if we would decide to have some backend connections, maybe integrate with some Azure functions a bit later
Yeah,
on.
that can be done, and that's where
Yeah,
static web app also has a lot of those built-in connection already, and like yeah, like there's already some magic that they've got baked in as part of that.
yeah. Well, one thing I was wondering about is whether this can create a like a log somewhere, and we can use we can kind of integrate the real-time analytics side of things in Fabric into the website traffic for this one. I don't know whether I'm just asking, no pressure.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that be
I,
like
I, I I
something
think
that's
I think it's something to do with it's either one, we put in a Google Analytics within the website itself, then we ingest the Google Analytics, right? Or we pretty much use something like that, right? Like that captures website traffic and so and put
hmm,
that to Fabric pretty much. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, we should explore that too.
yeah, that's the task for you as the infrastructure person.
Yeah,
I've got no idea.
yeah. I'll figure that out. Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
and obviously the whole SEO and that whole stuff and so on, right? Like that's just yet another game, right? That you have to play on.
I think we're moving into some really interesting space over there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been playing around with agents as well, man. Like yeah, maybe another time, but yeah, like you'll be surprised on how much these things can do, man. Yeah, actually, I just had a really really good idea. Right on the spot. Let me just do this now here. Let me just close them for a while. I have these extra icons here. I have continue. And I also used to have GitHub Copilot as well.
Mm.
But then I'm giving you ideas, right? So the idea here is that you can actually use continue, which as a kind of like GitHub Copilot replacement. So what does that mean? So that means that let's open one of your sources, sorry, one of your
Oh,
content.
in content, yeah,
Yeah,
posts, yeah.
let's say that markdown file. Now let's say I want to use continue and now create a new chat and say, and I'll add the context, which is the one that's being open right now. And now I want to say, make this 10, not 10, like 2 times longer, right?
Mm.
There you go, man. Like someone can generate and enhance your markdown for you, man.
Yeah. Well, just to take a step back, like if we think about, this website was created a week ago, and the amount of stuff that's generated by by Gen AI tools, like the logo was generated by
Yeah,
Gen AI, and most of the contents are kind of translated from the YouTube video that we've done, and then but this is super cool as well.
awesome. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks all.